Hi, I'm Edgar, and I'm the creator of Amerikaiju Comic, and you're watching Catch The Craze.
What's up, Crazies? Kickstarter fans, indie comic fans, I got something for you. I have indie creators in the blue room. They're ready to talk to you about their Kickstarters. They either launched it or gonna launch. So if you really love indie comics and you want to support the little guy and see them win, well, here's an opportunity to prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. Check this out. I'm done talking. Now it's time for the indies. Let's start it up.
Start it up, y'all. Start it up, y'all. Start it up, start it up, start it up, y'all.
Welcome to Catch The Craze podcast. I am your host with the most, the crazy man, Vera, and I am with me. Anyway, so this is a accommodation we're making for a talent by the name of Edgar Pasten, who has a Kickstarter currently going on, and so we wanted to make sure that we supported him in helping to get the word out about his Kickstarter. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, Edgar's comic book related contributions are attributed to Boom Studios, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as a member of the Saban brand's in-house story team. However, his professional focus is in product development. His designs can be seen in mass market retail all over the world in toy and novelty aisles. He has been a toy designer for almost 2 decades and has developed many patented toys. He recently stumbled on a new love for writing and is excited to share his stories with you. Edgar is a graduate from Otis College of Art and Design, where he developed a passion for all things art. Edgar grew up in Mexico City until the age of 5 when he moved to Los Angeles. He currently resides in Southern California. I don't know how I got that. With his wife and 2 sons. So he's currently promoting Amerikaiju. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So before we go into that, let me minimize this screen right now. And George is currently working on lettering the Forbidden Trade paperback today. So I'm flying solo. But tonight, catch me on NSC's Roadshow Atomic Comic Cadre. I will be co-hosting and joining them as we talk to a whole lot of talent. Isaac George, Peter Lawson, Lauren Marshall, Tony Menzies, comics.net.au, Comics Network Australia. So I will be on that show tonight from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll be on Facebook, YouTube, and streamed on all of the audio platforms like iHeartRadio and Spotify. So you want to join me. Catch the Craze is also part of the NSC Road Show, and so where it's just a collaboration of a lot of talent, and we're excited to be part of the Road Show. The link is in the profile, so hit that link and head over to there. There's a whole lot of stuff to learn about, and it's a division of another brand called Inked, which is a marketing firm that does a lot for the independents and helping. If you have a campaign, they will help you have a successful campaign. So what's going on in the world today while we wait? So I think it's about 7 minutes. Can I do this 7 minutes and carry the mic on my own? Man, that's going to be crazy. Stop laughing at me. Stop laughing at me. Anyway, I'm having some rosé and just chilling on my own. I'm excited. So good news for anybody who supported the Indiegogo for Forbidden. The sketchbooks are on their way to me. I have to do one sketch cover, and then I'll start packaging those. The other books, the gold foil, hollow foil, standard cover, they're currently being printed. I reached out to the printer to find out the status of it, so I was hoping to have it by this weekend, so I can start packaging everything up on Monday and have it out in the postal service's hands by Tuesday. Not sure if that's going to happen. So most likely by the end of next week, that is the goal, to get it to you. On other news, if you don't know, now you know. George and I will be at PowCon, and you don't want to miss that. So we're going to be hosting a panel. I got to move this out my face. Get out my face. What are you doing? What are you doing? That's just rude. So we're going to be at PowCon in New Jersey, and on May 29th and the 30th. Again, the information is below. Go to powevents.com. That's powevents.com. And join me and George at PowCon. It's going to be crazy. We're going to host our first panel together since the early 2000s. I mean, because we've been out of the game for a long time. So this is exciting. Sal of PowCon asked us if we'd like to host a panel. I was like, what? You don't have to tell me twice. So we're going to be at PowCon. So that's going to be dope. And then The Crazees Part 3. Again, you're in my face. I don't understand that. Herb? Where's Herb, man? Good help is hard to find. Catch The Crazees number 3, April 29th. You want to be there. Sign up now. So far, we have 16 people who signed up. Come on. The goal is to get to 100 backers. Are you going to be one of those 100 backers and support The Crazees? Support Sam the Crazy Man Vera and George the Dream of Medina. This is a story loosely based on our lives with some supernatural stuff. It's crazy. But part 3 is coming out. Join us April 29th on a live show as we launch it and hopefully make our goal that day. That's crazy. Imagine if we make our goal that day. No. I don't know. But so I see that Edgar's in the waiting room. And so I will play a little promo for Catch The Crazees, and then we'll bring him in. Hello there. How do you do? You're at an angle.
Hey!
You're kind of lopsided right now.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can fix it. Is that better? I see you landscape.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yes, better.
Good. All right.
Yes. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. Just rolling along, trying to keep up the grind.
Yeah. So, welcome to Catch The Craze. I am Sam the Crazy Man Vera. Normally, it's myself and my co-host, but he's currently working on one of our projects, so I am flying solo. So,
Nice.
Before we start, I want to learn a little bit about you. I read your I started the show 15 minutes early, and I read your the bio that you sent me, but I'd
Nice.
like the audience to hear it from you. So, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so my background is actually in product development. What that means, it's a fancy word for I design products of all kinds. I've actually focused a lot the last almost 18 years in toy. So I've done a lot of toy development. I've also done a lot of like melamine plates and bowls and stuff for kitchenware and stuff like that. But the majority of my design, where I have patents, are all under toy.
Nice.
So that's the brief. And then lately, like the last one of my last jobs was as a product manager for a brand you might know, Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
I actually worked on all of the publishing worldwide for Power Rangers, and with that came the comic book. So we started off with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That just blew up. I mean, we knew it would be big. We were planning for it to be big, but it snowballed into this monster that it is now.
Right.
And we actually got lucky that we popped up a few more, and things like the short series of MNPR Pink and the Go Power Rangers series. All of those fell under my purview while I was there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I see that you, let's go back to the early ages. So when was the first time that you realized that, toys is something that you were interested in, and that was something you wanted to go after.
Yeah. So, I mean, toys. I don't know anybody that doesn't like toys, right? I mean, it's one of those things where, it's just something you grow up with so much and you enjoy it. And for me, my family, we were fortunate enough that, there's 7 of us to begin with. So I got a lot of hand-me-downs. I got a lot of stuff from my older brothers. I got their old Kenner figures from the Star Wars days. Once they started growing out of them, even before then, I was already grabbing those and, making sure I was playing out the movie and stuff, and practical effects movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. I mean, those just got your mind racing, right? Like, for me, that was like, I would go to the theaters and you would see those little previews before the movie starts. And it was like the behind the scenes showing you how they did the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that whole thing. And, you see all these miniatures and, for me, it was like, oh, I can customize like some stuff at home. And it started with customizing stuff, right? Like just, taking a He-Man figure and adding some different armor, etc., just to like pump it up. And I didn't have a camera back then, so I was just imagining everything, as it were. But the love for toy kind of grew from that pop culture that I grew up with, and the fact that like I said, we were fortunate enough that my parents could afford some toys. We didn't have everything,
right.
But the things that we couldn't get, like we couldn't get the Millennium Falcon or Castle Grayskull, right? I mean, those were things that were like, we could get some figures every now and again, right?
Right.
But the big stuff, those we made, myself, that was like, I'd go out back and find some stuff and just cobble it together and make something out of it,
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting because I've always wanted the U.S. flag for G.I. Joe, the big ship, but my mom couldn't afford it, and so I wind up getting plaster of Paris and a bunch of stuff from the shed, and I just started building it myself. My own version of it. So it's amazing what creativity does and when it sparked. So then, at what point did you realize that you wanted to go after your passion and with education? How did you link the two?
So the biggest thing for me has been, all along, just kind of growing up with that, all of those different brands around me. And once I got into the design world, I was designing stuff for, like weird stuff that, bowls and plates and stuff when I started. And then I started doing some plush toys and stuff. But really it was sparked when I started working on licensed items, right? I think you had talked a couple shows back where, you were working for a t-shirt company, right? I mean, and you get a feel for it at that point too. Like you're seeing the style guides, you're seeing how they're built and stuff. And, once you take the mystery out of it, you're like, man, I can do this. I have ideas. Why can't I, get something going here? So, for me, it was demystifying the idea, that grand idea behind what a brand is, right? It's a story that you have. It's it's something that you're creating from scratch, and it's a world that you're building, and beyond that, all the other stuff kind of, just falls into place once you get going with it,
Right. So what was your first job in creating?
Creatively, my very first job out of college, let's just say, because I had a lot of jobs, man. I was a hustler as a kid. I'll say my first job out of college, I went out to Florida. I'm from Pasadena, from California, and I got this opportunity. Everybody was staying local. When we graduated as a class, there were only 20 of us, but I would say like 10, 12 went to Mattel alone, and then some people went to like the Jack Specific and all the other companies around here. And everybody was going in as designers, right? And I was like, cool, I'm all for it. Let's do it. But then like, I think a month before graduation, this company calls me and says, hey, you come out to Florida, you can be the boss, like everything. You have your hand in every single aspect of the business. And I was like, man, I can be the boss, out of college, green as could be, no idea whatsoever what that meant. And I flew out there, man. I stayed out there for a few years, and I was literally every part of that business, from concepting, sketches, sculpting, molding, sewing patterns, like you name it, I was there. I was sweeping the floors at night, man.
Wow. Wow. So what was your first week like? You decided to take the plunge, you're going to go after this job, you don't have previous experience, you have an education, you're going into this. What was that first week like for you?
Oh, it was a honeymoon, because for me, I was like, I'm the boss, and like when I say something, people are listening to me, that's awesome, I already had that, like that mentality, growing up in sports and stuff. It was, I was always yelling at other people, telling them what to do and stuff, I already had that instinct in me, and it just like, they were just like putting Kindle under that fire, and like just letting it go. And for me, it was that it was really awesome, because I was designing and they were listening, and they were like, yeah, let's invest some money into this. In college, my professors all pushed back. Everybody was like, no, that's stupid, or no, that's not possible, right? There was always a sense of reality that came with it. And with these guys, because they were just so new, it was a husband and wife. They were both super awesome, man. But they were just like, cool, you're the expert. And, not knowing any better, right. I was just like, yeah, I am, let's do this, let's keep going. So that first week was cool, but then the reality started hitting in later on, just kind of like, oh, that's why this isn't done this way. That's why this is done like that,
Right. So that was my next question was, what were the three things that you took away from this, which was the aha moment, and what was there anything from that experience that you took with you to your next venture?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, so tacking onto that last part of the question, like, did you take it with you? Yeah. I mean, every single day, every interaction you have, good or bad, especially the bad, you have to take with you. You have to, that's every single part of your life has to move with you in some, not in the way of like, I'm going to dwell on that and like focus on the fact that I was, that I made that mistake, but, just not repeating those mistakes. Right. But, the biggest thing was I took those lessons with me everywhere, in the future. And I made sure that, in those next steps that I took along the way, I made sure that none of those mistakes were repeated, at least not in the same way.
Right. So what was that next venture for you?
So next, I actually moved back to California. After that, it was a long road, but I moved back to California. I worked in a small company that does bubbles. The little company called Funrise, and with them, I was hired on to do like vehicles. They had the license for Tonka, and again, I was all for it. Tonka. I grew up with that. That's something cool. I did that for about 2 weeks. The vehicle stuff. It was cool. It was fun, but I still with that company. I looked around at what they were doing, and their bread and butter was bubbles, right? So I was like, I'm gonna build a niche for myself. Pretty much any person you pull off, a design job is gonna be able to design vehicles, especially with Tonka. You find out when you're in that professional setting that there's a lot of restrictions. You can't just make a really cool looking Tonka truck. It has to be within the parameters that they give you, right? I mean, you can't just go buck wild. Right. You have to give them a Tonka truck that lives within their world. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. I did that day one, and you already gave me the assets. So, what's next? So for me, I was trying to build a niche, and I ended up finding a really cool niche. I'm a tinkerer. to the point I was making earlier, I was making Castle Grayskull and just about every toy that we couldn't afford as a kid. And, I started tinkering with the big machines. They had some higher end machines that they were selling direct to like DJs and for parties and stuff like that. And they had at the time a pretty high failure rate, which meant when the consumer got it, opened it up, tried it out, it worked for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was, and then it started failing. And I started looking into it, right? I was like, well, let me take this apart. I took it apart, studied it, and I figured out that it was basically the steps that they were doing, the process for building it. They had gotten ahead of themselves and kinked a few hoses, and that was causing the item to fail in the eyes of the consumer. So I ended up redoing some of those pieces and working it out, and I ended up with a few patents for those bigger machines with that company. So it was like figuring out a way to like make myself valuable to that company, and I stuck around there for a bit too. Got, like I said, it got some patents under that company and everything. So
nice. So
yeah.
So then after that, what did you do?
Well, I kept climbing, man. I'm restless, bro. I'm like, I went to the next company, and I was a designer, and I want to say about 8 months into it, I became the design manager. It was like a very, very well-established, well-funded startup. That company, basically, they were buying out other companies and mixing things up, and they bought another company that had designers built into it already, and they hired me for a separate company, and they were just like, well, you guys are all design, let's just put you guys all together. And I ended up taking control of like the day-to-day tasks of like, just being a design manager in general, and from there, that's when I moved over to Saban Brands. And that's where I really cut my teeth in terms of like really diving into brand from a different perspective, because before I was designing and sending it off to the licensor, and the licensor, it was like the Wizard of Oz, right? Like you send it off and then you just hear this voice, no. Right? But why? Like, what? Right. This thing is super cool. Right. Let me do this. And they would just be like, no. Right? And that was it. Like you just didn't hear anything. It was just no. Right. So going over to Saban, I was now the licensor, right? So I was now that voice, and I was like, wow, it really sucked to just hear no, right? So when I get something, my deal was like, I'm thinking like a designer, right? I'm saying no, but this is why it's a no. And if you can come up with a creative way around that no, cool, let's do this. And I like to think that in doing that, in going about it that way, I created a lot of really, really solid relationships with the licensees, with those companies, but also, also created some really cool, innovative stuff that wouldn't have come out otherwise, because, with any designer, I think, if you say yes to the first thing, like with me, right? When I was in that first company, if you just say yes, cool, you're gonna get some crazy, like just crazy stuff out, that probably makes sense, maybe an outside chance, but for the most part, it's not gonna be all that well, right? But if you challenge the designer with some, even some small parameters, right? Like, well, there's only 5 Rangers, or there's only this, there's only that. We can't just create a new character, right? The designer starts understanding the brand better, and in doing that, of what they're designing, they become more passionate about it, and I in turn was more passionate about the projects I was working on too.
Right. So at what point did you figure out, through that experience working on Power Rangers, that you wanted to just create your own comic book series?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd had this idea way back. I believe it was like 2012 2010, it was really solidified, and it started off with the name. A buddy of mine, John, who has been on the show,
right.
He and I started going to conventions together, right? We had this little company. We were called Three Coconut Monkey, and it was this whole thing, man. It was awesome. It was good times. We were going to all these conventions, and at one of our first conventions, we were set in the very back, like just in the very back. And we were out there, and I think you guys covered some of this with what's the kid's name, Lemetico,
right.
With the POW con, right?
Right.
There are no bad spots, right? I mean, technically, yeah, there's some spots that are not as great, but we're both hustlers, and we're both out there with our like noisemaker, and kind of getting people in, and kind of doing the whole the whole circus act and getting people over. But we had a few figures that we had made. We made our own platform figures, so like a blank vinyl figure. And one of them, we were doing some live sculpting, and he starts doing a monster, and I started doing a different monster. And as we're sculpting them, I think he made like a Godzilla figure, right, out of one of my figures. And we had these guys come over, and just like, man, like live trolls, right?
Right.
And they were like, "What is this?" And we're like, "Oh, cool. Let me introduce you to my character. This is why he exists, and yada yada. And this is what we're doing. We're doing some live sculpting." People ate it up when we were doing live sculpting. They were like, "Oh, what's he doing?"
Right.
So it was a show, and these guys come in, and there's a little bit of a crowd. It's not that big, but there's a little bit of a crowd, and they come in. They're very loud, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, this is what we're doing." And they're like, "You Americans can't make kaiju." And then they walked away, right? And it was just like dropping the mic, and we were like, "All right." That happened, whatever.
Right.
And my boy John, he just rolled off his shoulders.
Right.
He didn't care. He was just like, "Keep walking, man." And for me, it stuck, man. It was just like, it stung. I was just like, how does this guy even know, what we can do?
Right.
And to even say Americans, right? Like, you Americans can't make this. He wasn't Japanese or anything either, which was even weirder. But they walked away, and like I said, it stuck. It stung. It stuck with me. I think that was like 2009, and it just stuck with me for a few months. And after a while, I was like, "You know what? Let's make something where we're making American monsters, bro." And he was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. Do your thing." I'm always coming up with different different ideas and stuff. That's just the way that we work, my buddy John and I. And at the time, I was like, you know what? It would be cool if it were like, just like, what if we did like American myths and monsters and oh, are you still there, Matt?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, I just gotta. Sorry, my phone is dying here. But he was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And he kind of left it at that. And I came back a couple months later, and I started sketching and drawing and like thinking of like my little spider web notes of like who I would include. And I was like, definitely, like, I want to have Bigfoot and Chupacabras, Jersey Devil, like, who are those mythical monsters that are out there already. I don't necessarily want to recreate the wheel, but I do want to re-envision those characters, give them some life, right? The way that the rest of the world has Godzilla and King Kong, right? King Kong is an American made character, but it's not something that you grew up like fearing, right? Whereas like the Jersey Devil, right? Like, you heard about him, you may not have like known all the details, but you're like, oh, that's a monster, you don't want to mess there, right? Like Bigfoot, you always see the Inquirer magazine or whatever, so it had that mysticism for me. And then the name actually started the whole thing. I thought of the name Amerikaiju right away, and I was like, yeah, just to stick it to those guys, like, I'm gonna just name it Amerikaiju, and it just kind of rolled off the tongue. It was a concept that just started from there, and then of course, being as as crazy and kind of on the spectrum of ADD, I moved on to other things. And, 10 years later, we have this pandemic that basically said, you have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Like, you have some free time. You don't have conventions to go to. You don't have Walmart to go shopping in, or, any of that stuff. So I basically hunkered down, and I plowed through at least, I want to say 10, 15 of my projects that I had been putting off for a little over a decade.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in a very long way around the question. Start off with a name, and then I the idea of these monsters just came about.
So talk about the series and your Kickstarter.
Yeah, so I'm the creator, obviously, and writer, more out of necessity than anything. But I'm the creator of Amerikaiju, and it's a comic book about a 5-year-old named Ike, and he is basically endowed with these powers, mystical powers from these warrior brothers, and these warrior brothers are just kind of complete opposites, right? You have one brother that's just gung-ho, and he just wants to get in there and fight, and he's the brute, right? He gets in there and he just doesn't think about it, just fights. And then you have the other brother that's very analytical and wants to think about everything and plan and be prepared. And they're both trying, they're both in his ear. They're both trying to get, trying to get him to be the best monster hunter that they can get, because there's only one of him. Right. And they can only afford to give one person these powers under the circumstances. So that's like the elevator pitch.
Right. So who's illustrating it?
Illustrating is just Rel Rojales, and he's a super talented guy. He's actually tied to another Kickstarter that I kept an eye on, Ignis Quadrant. It's I think that one's a Western, and I really dig his style. When I saw it, I was like, I think this is my guy, and basically we hooked up, and he's doing the illustrations, the final inks, I should say, for the interiors. I'm still designing pencils and like all the the world and everything, and then I send that over to him to like really give it his touch. But we're on Kickstarter right now,
right?
And that ends May 6th.
May 6th. So now, why did you elect not to illustrate it yourself?
Well, it's one of those things where I feel like people around me have seen my stuff enough that they're probably like, cool. that's just another one of your drawings, right. I felt like it needed a different style, because for me, even though they're monsters and they're they're supposed to be fierce and all of that, like I would still make them cute somehow,
right.
Like it's just the way that I've my style is just kind of bubbly and kind of humorous to some degree.
Right.
I really dig the chibi style, and it just wouldn't mesh as well, I think, as just Rel's style. So I figured, I'm gonna let him focus on the art, and I'll art direct, which is something that I've done a lot of in throughout my career, and then just focus on the writing and make sure that is on point. It needs to be
right.
for a story like this.
Right. So talk about the benefits and some of the rewards that people can get by backing your Kickstarter.
Yeah, so we start off with a really good deal at $7. You get all 3 books. We're planning on a total of 7 books, but issues 1, 2, and 3 will be included as digital downloads for right. $7. So it starts off from there. The physical book, we have we're already planning on the volume 1 trade paperback. I like to think ahead. I'm already on issue. I've already finalized issue 4.
Nice.
Writing, and issue 5 and 6 are in a pretty final outline right now, and that's because somewhere at the tail end of our Kickstarter tiers, is, for a couple bucks, you can be or put yourself or your child in the comic.
Right.
So I left a few slots kind of loose for people to slide in, and for characters to develop a little bit further, depending on, how many people we actually get to bite on those.
Right.
But another cool part of the Kickstarter is like you get the books and all of that, but the villain is also a big deal here. And I think the big draw for everybody is the monsters, right? The hero's cool, and you're gonna see him develop all the way through, and he has a really good arc. But the monsters are what's gonna keep the public coming back, issue after issue. And we're gonna focus for our very first figure is Tagarek, and he's the main villain. And what I did is I sculpted this guy, and we made him out of roto vinyl. Mm. So the initial entry point is a blank figure, and then it moves up from there into some custom figures. But he's I believe he's 11 different pieces. He's has, I believe, 9 points of articulation. So it's a pretty hefty piece, standing at 8 inches tall.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful figure.
Yes, I'm looking.
And not just because I sculpted it myself.
That's awesome. So why did you decide to do a Kickstarter?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, the biggest reason I did the Kickstarter is, one, there's a certain marketing angle to it, right? I think I put 3,100 or something, right, somewhere around there for my goal, and the reality is that's not enough to pay for 2 issues.
Right.
But my goal was, if I can get some money from this and get enough of a following, then I can follow up. And I'm paying for. I already paid for issue 1. I'm about a third of the way through issue 2. To be honest, right. I'm not one to wait around and be like, ooh, if this goes, then I'll continue.
Right.
I'm all in, man. I've already planned all of this out, and for me, more than anything is figuring out whether or not there's where around the world, if it goes around the world, right? Like, where in California, where in the States, where are those fans, so that I can, to some degree cater to them, right?
Right.
Like, if I find out that everybody's, basically in the Midwest, then I'll do more Midwest monsters, right? As opposed to doing some, bi-coastal monsters, right?
Right.
Something that's more appropriate to where they're at,
Right. Yeah, no, I see that it's available internationally, which is a good thing.
Right.
The characters look amazing. The art looks dope.
Thank you, man.
And so how are you communicating this out to the public currently?
So other than the Kickstarter, I've done a lot of social media outreach, just through Facebook ads, through Instagram ads, getting out there on the boards and, posting stuff and, posting it till they tell me not to. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's really that, and then good people like yourselves, man. I mean, you invite me on your show, and I horn in on your time. That's all I know how to do.
Right.
I have a friend that's helping me out right now with the marketing, or will be helping me out moving forward. So hopefully the marketing side of it ramps up a little bit more.
Right. Awesome. So
yeah.
For anyone out there who's interested in your project and wants to know more about it and you, how can they reach you?
So the website is Amerikaiju Comic. You can go to amerikaijucomic.com. You can find us on social media. It's all super easy. It's all Amerikaiju Comic. So the handles are all Amerikaiju Comic for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I don't even know how to use TikTok, and I'm on there, man. I'm trying. but yeah, you can find us easily that way. Or my personal account is @LittleHouse with a 3 at the end instead of an E. So it's @LittleHouse or Amerikaiju Comic.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have 22 days. This is your first campaign.
No. So actually, this is my third campaign. The others have been for my buddy John, and for Olvera Street, which is a historical monument here in LA.
Ah, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So then that Kickstarter is like peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
You get highs and you get lulls, and you drive yourself nuts, and you're like, oh, what's
Right.
happening? And you go,
Right.
you post like a madman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just about
And yours is coming up too, right?
Yes, the 29th. Yes. This will be
29th.
my third. This will be my third Kickstarter. But my fourth campaign because I just did one on Indiegogo for a separate book.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but it's a daily grind. That's the best.
Right.
The best I can say is that if you're not posting every day and using all the different types of hashtags as possible, and
Right.
and the biggest thing is joining communities.
Right.
On Facebook, there's so many communities out there. Join the communities and network, and because they'll get the word out as well.
Right.
But yeah, the link is in the profile. Hit that link. Make your pledge today. The stuff looks amazing. The figures look dope.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, you don't see too many comic book Kickstarters that have figures along with it, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. I
Yeah.
went all in. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
There's more coming. There's more coming.
There you go. So thank you for being on Catch the Craze. We miss you. We wish you much success. This airs Friday, and so it'll be up and it'll be streaming both on YouTube, Facebook, and also all audio platforms from My Heart's on Spotify, Pandora. But the link is in the profile, and it'll be right below. All right. So that was Murakaiju. It sounds fun. It sounds amazing. Check it out. Go and back it. I love the story. I love the fact that just think about it. Remember when you were a kid, when you're put in a position where your mind is racing a mile a minute, but your assets are limited, right? So here's someone who said, I'm going to build my world. I'm going to develop it. And from that moment, his destiny was laid out for him, right? So I think that's pretty awesome. And I recognize the fact that when I was a kid, I wanted the USS flag. G.I. Joe was so huge, and my mom couldn't afford it. And, my mom was raising 4 kids on her own, and she only had a 9th grade education. So, we had a garage, and I remember going out there, getting the plaster of Paris and getting wood and sheetrock and aluminum foil and some twine. And I just started building my own G.I. Joe fortresses and my own ships, and it's that stuff. And I remember I used to make my own sets. I would get styrofoam and build my own like snow sets for my G.I. Joe figures and jungle sets, and so very inspiring. Check it out. Pledge today. Hit the link in the profile if you want to promote your show. If you want to promote your Kickstarter, your campaign on Catch the Craze. Here's the rate card. It's as simple as hitting the link below, going over to our website, and select. Do you want a single episode? Do you want multiple episodes? Do you want cross-promotional where we promote you on all our platforms, which is the Craze Intent or Less, What's in the Box, Catch the Craze. We also have package deals. So all of it affordable, economical, and won't break the bank. It's like getting a couple of lattes for you and a pal, but you can actually go and promote your campaign and get you one step closer to making that successful campaign. If you want to be a guest on Catch the Craze, it's as simple as doing exactly what he did. DM and said, hey, hook a brother up. And I was like, sure. It's like, I got a Kickstarter. Time is of the essence. I got you. That's how we do here on Catch the Craze. If you like this episode, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more guests like Edgar, let me know. Leave a comment below if you have any questions about toy making and designing or even patenting your stuff. Put the comments below. Let's start that conversation. Or reach out to him. His link is below. You can go directly or you can comment on YouTube. I'm Sam the Crazy Man Vera. I appreciate you sincerely. Thank you for watching. We do this because of you. And for all the indie creators out there, this is your home. Your creativity shines here on Catch the Craze. Peace.